genuine kind of theme that seems to be sort of emerging this is very much about purpose, about COVID is kind of maybe people expected perhaps purpose to come off the agenda, and in fact people are really doubling down on it as a way to sort of stand up and come through. So we're seeing lots of press about the state of the advertising industry and pressure on marketers. As you see them, as somebody with kind of all the experience that you've got, what are the big issues that marketers face today?
I mean, you know, this year's been the toughest ever for marketers, right? Navigating through COVID, Black Lives Matter, the Facebook boycott. And I think what every brand is realizing now, that they have to be human, they have to have a voice and a set of values that people can connect with. A recent McKinsey report said 61% of people said that how a brand responds during a crisis will dictate whether or not they'll buy that product. So what brands are saying is more critical than ever before, and every brand knows that they have a role in the solution and these social issues, and staying silent is not an option. So purpose is wrapped into that, but it's not just what you say, it's getting that right and making that more human and more purposeful and meaningful, but it's how you say it and how you distribute that message. And the reality is that before COVID, the metrics were challenged and the distribution ecosystem was challenged. You know, the digital distribution is controlled by Google and Facebook. They control the data, they control the consumer relationship. The average engagement rate is under 1%. The average click-through rate is under 0.08%. So the status quo of distribution of our messages, no matter how powerful and purposeful they are, is really broken. You know, we live in this world of really personalized media with social, and yet we don't have a personalized advertising distribution. And so it's really digital media distribution is really ripe for an overhaul.
Absolutely, and I read an interview you gave with Forbes. You took that because one of the challenges you haven't mentioned there was fraud.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, what are the latest stats? 50% of all digital media is fraudulent. And, you know, I always find it amazing that if you ask 10 very experienced marketers to define an impression, you get 10 very different answers. I mean, it's challenging when the metrics are challenged, fraud is ripe, and you know, we're at a point where the consumer, at the bottom line is the consumer doesn't get any value, any real value. So it's not working for brands and it's not working for consumers. And I think we're going to look back in 2 years and say, oh my God, the metrics that we thought were okay are just unacceptable.
Absolutely. I remember it brings to mind that old quote, you know, I know 50% of the money I spend on advertising is wasted. I just don't know which 50%. But that never implied I'm literally throwing it away on fraudulent advertising. I mean, that was just, I made the wrong choice. I put it in the wrong place. Not it's wasted.
I mean, can you believe that we're still here with all of the technology and all of the data and all of the tools that we have? We're still in a place as marketers, you know, 30 years later, where we are still unable to account for the effectiveness and efficiency of all our dollars. And we know actually that there's more waste than ever before.
Yeah, and yet the halcyon promise, I mean, I'm old enough and long enough in the tooth to have been doing this for quite a while. I remember, you know, when we used to do these very early sort of social media conferences, and the big brands would turn up, and the halcyon promise of digital was, you will know exactly what the result is of every single decision you make. No longer will you be throwing money at you know, this kind of unmeasured sort of morass of big broadcast media.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's really interesting. I built a company before this called Standard Media Index, and we track all of the dollars across the ecosystem. And television is still holding its own. I mean, for sure to an older audience, but television is effective because brands feel that it doesn't have the fraud that a lot of the digital channels have. And, you know, it's it's unacceptable in today's world. And I think part of that stems from, whilst we were reinventing media and the way consumers engage, we never really reinvented the way that brands engage through advertising and how the advertising reaches someone. We just, interrupted a television program with an ad, and now we interrupt your search online or your social feed with ads. We didn't reinvent how we could reach someone as a human in a more respectful way until now, Adam.
Until now. We'll get on to that. So, the other thing, as you said, Advertising Media Index before, 30 years in the business, and these challenges aren't new, but they have accumulated over time, much like, a meander in a river. They build out over time, don't they? So what have been the tipping points, do you think?
In terms of what's unacceptable, I mean, I think we're past the tipping point. I actually think we've jumped the shark. I mean, if we look back and say an average engagement rate of 1% on a brand message, an average click-through rate of under 0.0%, that's actually unacceptable. And I mean, I think if anything, this Facebook boycott, if there was somewhere else to go, could have been a real tipping point. I mean, we saw 1,200 brands around the world get behind this to stop hate for profit, and yet there was nowhere no strong alternatives. I know that Snapchat ticked up over this period, but the reality is we're in a pretty terrible place as advertisers in reaching our consumers in a really personalised way. And right now, the only way we can do that is through email or through our social channels, which is, again, controlled by the algorithms on the Facebook end. So it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on some of the ways that people are trying to fix this sort of lack of relationship between brand and consumer? So I'm thinking sort of particularly around influencer marketing. I'm thinking particularly around this purpose-driven marketing. What do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're both great tools. Influencer marketing, what is it now, a $10 billion market. Advertising globally is a $550 billion market, so it's still relatively small. Purpose-driven marketing, great. It defines what you say and makes it more human. But what we're seeing as the very broken piece of this is how I reach my customer to say it. How do I reach the consumer that I want on their terms at a scale I need to deliver results for my business and for my brand? And that's why it always comes back to Facebook and Google, because it's challenging to, even if I get a brilliant piece of influencer content, when they share organically, the algorithm controls how many people see it. So I still have to put paid media behind it. And on the purpose side, I say something great, and then I have to go back to put lots of dollars with the big platforms to distribute that message. So I could do something really purposeful and meaningful and then create an ad or a brand message around it, and then spend $10 million with Facebook getting the message out. So it contradicts each other. I'm doing really good here, but my distribution is always where things fall down. And so it's the distribution infrastructure that brands have had to, where brands have always got to fall back on Facebook and Google and the big digital platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a great example. Fernando Machado, who's the CMO of Restaurant Brands International, was talking about Burger King yesterday. And there was one thing he did, which I just thought, was really, really good. But it was effectively to kind of hack the system you're talking about. They sponsored a very low-level football club, soccer club, in the English Premier League, because they knew that they would be in the FIFA game. And so they had the BK leagues, and then they just encouraged people to play them in career mode and start putting superstar footballers into this BK thing. And of course, then people would win the competitions, the esports stuff. But it's effectively, all that creativity, all that purpose, all that effort was to hack this media distribution model.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is we've never put the consumer at the heart of the distribution model. It's traditionally, it's always been, let's go where our consumers are and then interrupt that entertainment experience, whether that's social or TV or gaming or whatever. It's never actually been the idea of what if we were to engage someone on their terms in a way that they want to be reached, where they're getting the value. And so that's the interesting piece, how we deliver our message in a way where the consumer is being ultimately really valued and respected.
So I think we're starting to frame your solution now, and we will get to that. But before, just one more question before we get to it.
No, it's great, please.
So I'm going to ask you to think a little bit more wider, and I think, WeAre8 definitely has a sort of play. What do you think the future then of the advertising industry, what could it look like?
I mean, I believe that brands have a very big role to play in addressing some of the biggest problems on the planet. I mean, it's a $550 billion advertising industry, advertising ecosystem. And if we eliminate the waste from that ecosystem and connect brands and consumers more intimately and directly and efficiently, that money can be redirected to things that really matter. I mean, I believe that the ad industry can affect unimaginable change in the world by restructuring distribution, but that all of that requires putting people and purpose at the heart of the economics. Because interestingly, the ad industry touches every other industry: fashion, auto, finance, CPG. Every industry is touched and driven by it. Really, the ad industry gives voice to every other industry. So it drives this purpose, it drives this connection to the consumer. But unless we really put people at the heart of the economics and value the person that is on the receiving end of the message, I think we're going to be in tough shape. It doesn't matter how many, ads we serve on Facebook. It doesn't matter what we say. If we're, putting billions of dollars into the hands of very few, that status quo is unhealthy. So it's about putting people and purpose at the core of the entire industry. And I think the realization for people is, unless I love that you're doing this fabulous campaign for COVID or Black Lives Matter or around the Facebook boycott, but unless you're delivering it to me in a way that's getting my attention or values me, then I don't know how I feel about you. You're not putting your money where your mouth is. And the future of the ad industry is valuing the consumer in a transformational new way, and we're not doing that today.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sue. So look, I, as always, have a lot more questions for Sue, but this isn't about me asking questions. It is, of course, about you. Last session of the day, thinking caps on. Please do raise your virtual hands. We're going to go through Sue's idea now. So, Sue, we have 2 slides from you that we can show here. So please do let us know when you would like us to show the slides. We'll put them up full screen for the audience. So let's look at your solution. What is WeAre8?
Look, we put the human, the individual consumer at the core of the ecosystem. And through our partnerships with mobile operators, you can now reach your target consumer on their terms at a time of day that they want. I should just talk about the economics. Maybe you bring the economics slide up quickly.
Sure. Can we bring up that first slide, please?
At the end of the, everything is about economics. So that's sort of formatted strangely, forgive the formatting there, but essentially, if you spend $1 on Facebook, Facebook keep that dollar and deliver against that. In our ecosystem, 60% of every dollar goes through to the end consumer. 5% of every dollar goes through to a charity of the brand's choice, and then 35% comes to us and our distribution partners. And that's what the distribution partners give us: scale. And then the consumer experience is if you go to the next slide, the consumer experience for people is where people now, if you imagine, we shop when we want, we watch movies when we want. Now we can watch our brand messages and engage with brands when and where we want on our terms. We get messages pushed to us every day through SMS is the initial touch point. So once I've opted into the ecosystem, I can get SMS messages and I control the amount, so I can control the frequency. So it could be watch my 7th generation message. I click on that. I watch the full video view. And by the way, as a brand, you only pay if the target consumer watches the full video view. They then answer a couple of questions, and then there's a click-through screen where they can click and learn more. Click to learn more about our sustainability, get this special offer, any kind of click-through. And we're seeing, I almost don't want to put this number out here, but we're seeing insane, like 80% plus click-through rate, like insane click-through rates, because people are now engaging with the brand on their terms. And then they get paid into their wallet, which sits on our app. And they can use that to pay off their mobile bill, etc. So the whole premise is I can get paid, feel valued, and make positive impact in 2 minutes a day.
Fantastic. Hey, look, if enthusiasm could sell this alone, so that's what we need to do. Now, I did hear in my ear, but I missed the name, forgive me, that we do have a question. Who do we have a question from? We have a question in, Sue, from Linda Owens at Nestle. Linda,
Hi, Linda.
hey, how are you?
Doing great, thank you. So my question for you is, first of all, thank you so much for your insights. I would love to hear your opinion on the future of programmatic media buy, because it's also something that we've been doing more and more of, and it's been sold in the way that is a little bit similar to your approach, right? Which is just trying to have that personalized message and targeting customers. But I'm just curious to hear your expert opinion on what the future of that is, and if it truly is something that we should be doing more of.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, it's a great question, by the way. So programmatic in terms of automation, if the definition is more automation, we've built an automated self-serve buying engine, so you can reach very targeted consumers in a direct way. I think the challenge with programmatic is that the value exchange. So you can reach consumers in a direct way, but the consumer is still not being valued in a direct way. So when you run a campaign through our system, you get one-on-one direct relationships. You get their full attention on the video. They answer questions. So it's a much deeper, targeted relationship where they're getting something out of it. I mean, I'm a fan of programmatic. I think it can be super targeted, but I still question the whole premise of, following people around the web and bombarding them with as many impressions as possible. I mean, it's more the premise of serving someone an ad like that, as opposed to, and there is a place for everything, but our solution is much more engaged, reach the right customers, engage them at scale. So it's this really significant reach, but give them something out of it. So it's putting the consumer back into the equation. And that doesn't play a role in programmatic.
So I guess...
Does that answer?
Linda, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Linda. Much appreciated. Thanks a lot. So I guess then the sort of logical question for me then is what's your audience? What's your audience base? Yeah. What's your breakup? How have you built it? That sort of stuff.
Yeah. So we have a number of distribution partners. So we have built our technology, including the self-serve engine, on top of our, and in the UK, BT, who are the largest mobile operator, have 40 million people that it's the network. We're using the mobile operator network to to underpin our ecosystem. So, for example, in the UK, they've pushing us out to 40 million people in the UK. They've pre-installed us on all Android devices, and that's what gives us the scale. So on top of, we've got and we're just finalising the deals in the US, where the mobile operators are actually our partners in distribution. By the way, when we were doing all the testing, because we tested this with over 1 million people in the US and a number of brands like ConAgra, etc., and we saw a 42% organic growth rate just off that base. So what we've seen is this speaks the language of people. You know, people want to be valued. It explodes really fast, and if anything, we need now the brands to catch up. It's very obvious to people that they should be getting served the ads directly on their terms. You know, this is speaking their language. Now we need all of the brands to catch up and start valuing people in this way.
So I guess also, you know, a question for me, how sustainable do you think this is? So if you test it with 1 million people, is it the kind of, and forgive me, you know, the old adage that Pepsi-Cola always won the taste test because it's full of sugar and everyone likes the first sip, people prefer Coca-Cola because over a longer drink, it is a, you know, blah, blah, blah.
I love the analogy. Yeah, I love it. And I was also neurotic about that, by the way. So we did a lot of testing around longevity because we wanted to prove that not only is this a novel thing for people to do, it's a sustainable thing for people to do. And what we saw is it not only became completely sustainable, it became completely loved and addictive for people, because if I'm now getting engaged by brands that love me, it makes me feel good. I'm getting these positive SMS messages. They're asking me what I think. They're helping me subsidize my mobile bill. They're helping support my life in a way. But on top of that, every time I watch an ad and get paid, I'm also making impact. So we found 52%, which was insanely high. 52% of people pay it forward, the money that they make, if that's $1 a day or $2 a day, little amounts, but they can pay it forward to a charity of choice as well. So the idea that I can do something that makes impact and has a positive impact on other people's lives is a really big deal. Even if I don't want that $1 a day to subsidize my mobile bill, I'll pay it forward and help someone else that does make a difference for. And in this, particularly post-COVID and, you know, and economic, in these critical economic times, even if I don't care about that, I want to do it to help someone else. And this economically empowering, economic empowerment for the consumer is really powerful. And if we think about an industry that's $550 billion big, imagine then if 60% of that, if $300 billion is going back into the pockets of people, that's exciting. And if 5% of that is going to causes that we care about, the ad industry, the ad and brands can make a really significant impact, because everything comes back to economics.
Yeah. Now, of course, thank you, Sue. We have another question from audience. Jenny Baldwin, I believe, at the Burns Group. Jenny, are you there? Hey, Jenny, how are you? Jamie. Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hi. Sue, I was wondering, with the traditional platforms, we're taught to know that we could get at least a 1% return on investment. How does your platform stack up to that? Can you guarantee the same in ROI, better? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we guarantee, because of the questions, we're guaranteeing at least 10% engagement on every campaign. We're also guaranteeing click-through rate, which no platforms ever do, and we're guaranteeing 10% click-through rate on campaigns. So we're because we've now run so many campaigns and we've really seen how fundamentally, transformationally different the benchmarks are, we'll put our backsides on the line and partner with brands to guarantee results. So already you don't pay unless there are fully completed video views and engagements and questions answered, and we guarantee all of that. But we've basically eliminated the risk, Shamie.
Thank
and
you.
What I love, by the way, the Burns Group, shout out to you guys, because as a canvas, as a brand, you don't want to waste this opportunity, because for the first time ever, you've got a consumer's attention. So what you ask them, the questions that you ask them, and the video that you ask them to watch, make sure it's great. And the work that I've seen from Burns Group in terms of how they use this canvas is really phenomenal, because they're understanding that this is a human relationship for the first time ever in distribution.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. See you later. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Right, up next we have, I believe, Linda from Nestle. Again, Linda, is it you? Can it be you?
Yes.
Hey, Linda, how are you? What's your second question?
I'm back. Obviously, I'm interested in this platform. So I do have a question. I haven't gone into the platform myself, so bear with me as I ask this. Why wouldn't, if it's important for the customer to get something back, for example, if we as manufacturers target our customers and we are saying, hey, give us a review, we're going to give you a $100 gift card or whatever it is. Why wouldn't it be easy for just us at Nestle or a manufacturer to do that directly, because the customer wants to hear from us, as opposed to going to WeAre8 platform and getting it done through there?
So I think, it's a great question. You are good. It's a great question. There are things that you will always want to do direct. And our role, we've lived in a world where there's a middleman, Google and Facebook, and they have not encouraged the direct connection between the brand and the consumer. We're the opposite of that. Our whole role is sitting underneath, enabling the direct connection between you and the consumer. So there might be things that you want to do where you want to ask people to give you a review, and you might want to do that through email or social call-outs or direct connection with the consumer. And we enable that through the data infrastructure and everything else. But there might be other instances where you want to, over time, build a relationship with 5 million, 10 million customers, and you want to just get their attention for a minute to watch a piece of content and answer questions. And so we're a much more effective way to do that, because there's this trusted framework that they've already opted into our ecosystem. They're expecting that from us. We've built the payment infrastructure for millions of people, and we've got the whole engine built so you can do that with all of the reporting off the back of it. So, we'd love to show you the self-serve system and how you target audiences and all of the reporting. There are things that you'll always want to do direct, and there are messages that you'll want to use our engine super cost effectively for. And while you're doing that, you want to get all of those direct relationships into your own ecosystem, because that's been, as a brand person at heart, that's always driven me crazy, that it's the brand money that's built these behemoths, and yet they've taken all the power. And so we will always try. A consumer doesn't want 50 SMSs from all different brands. They want one trusted partner, and us to filter these things and pay them really efficiently and make that all seamless. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Up next, thank you, Linda. I believe we have Janine from the Family Coppola. Hey, Janine, how are you? Did I get your name right today?
You did. Thank you.
Lovely. What's your question for Sue?
Yeah, my question was, are you giving your consumer users of your platform the ability to prioritize the messaging they receive from brands that are supporting the charities that they themselves care about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we did a lot of testing around this. So as a consumer, I control the amount of brand messages I get per day and the time of day that I want to receive them. So in the morning, afternoon, evening, etc. When we tested this, people said to us, you send me the brand messages, because 95% of people said, I'll accept an unlimited amount any time of the day, which is interesting. And what people want is the control over whether they accept that or not. So we take the risk on the SMS, we fund that, we'll go out to your target audience, and they will see that Coppola would love my attention. I'm going to earn 10 cents or 20 cents, and 2 cents is going to this charity. I, as a consumer, can then choose whether to opt in and accept that or not. As a brand, if I don't accept that, you don't pay for the SMS. We take the risk on that. But the consumer then sees who you are as a brand, the value, and what charity you're linked with, and then they make the choice. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, Janine?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Janine. Much appreciated. Up next,
by the way, on that, they really care about the charities that you support, that it does make an impact in their decision to opt in and engage with you.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Next we have Prima, I think, from Viacom. Priya. Hey, Priya, how are you?
Hi there.
What's your question for Sue?
Hi, Sue. Thank you. I had a quick question, and I apologize if this is a naive question. It's just something that's boggled my mind. What is happening or what is not happening in a situation like this? So say I'm reading an article in one of the newspapers, or digital, and it's raging fires in California, 20,000 people displayed, and then I'll see an ad, not necessarily this particular ad, but just to make the point, buy this beautiful Cartier watch. And I'm thinking, why would you place an ad in an article like that? It just seems so disjointed and irresponsible on the brand's part, although I don't think that Cartier even knows that that's what's happening. Yeah. So the question is this the challenge with programmatic that you mentioned earlier, in terms of what is happening or what should not be happening, I guess?
Well, that is actually a better answer than the way I answered it, because in programmatic, you're never in control of the content that you sit next to and the context, and that's the overarching challenge with programmatic. The beautiful thing with this that we're seeing is we know that the consumer that's watching your ad and answering the questions is in your exact audience, so we'll guarantee that one-to-one. And because of the structure of the questions, we can qualify that person. So if you want pet owners in New York or whatever it is, so we can guarantee that specific person. But the beautiful thing is they are here because they're opting in to engage with you. So as you say, we've decoupled the ad from the content, so it's no longer, it's standing on its own. It's no longer part of or interrupted or influenced by negative content or anything around it. What we've seen and proven is that by decoupling the ad and serving that to brands to consumers independently on their terms is much more powerful. And so your answer was actually much better. Thank you. It's one of the big challenges in programmatic. It's context, because and that was, that's always been the beautiful thing about TV, right? The context is so elevated and beautiful. And we actually work very well alongside TV because, we tested with a number of show promotions, and people love watching show promos and then clicking through to watch. But it also, if I'm watching a show and then getting a brand message SMS to me, it's a beautiful dual experience. So TV and the elevated power of TV with this very personalized digital experience is a lovely match.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for your question, Priya. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Up next, we have, I feel like a tennis umpire, Jan from Evergreen. Hey, Jan, how are you?
Hello. I'm great, thanks. Living the dream. It's Jean Husson from Evergreen, and Sue, your brand is absolutely inspiring, and your vision of changing the world is very much in line with our vision. I wondered, do you have a minimum investment by which brands partner with you?
I love that. And it's our, I love this question because it's our whole positioning is the people's platform. This is for everyone to feel valued. And on the brand side, we realized that to service a high level of client manually was going to just be really tough. So we do that and we're as personalized as possible, but we have also built a self-serve engine that we're deploying at the end of November, which is much like the Facebook buying engine. So I can qualify my budget, my target audience, the cause that I want to support, all of the elements, and then run it as a fully self-serve infrastructure, and you get beautiful reporting off the back of it, and you get our support wherever needed. But we're really making this as turnkey as possible for everyone to participate, because at the end of the day, it's a marketplace. We want to get as many valuable brand messages to people as possible. And we want to enable the brands to connect directly with as many people in their target audience as possible. So we can't do that just with the big brands. We had to build an infrastructure to enable the SMBs to really reach the people that they want. And that's what really excites me as well. The idea that you could run a campaign for $2,000 and we can quickly prove the value of the whole infrastructure, and then you can scale up. I mean, the truth is that's where Facebook makes so much of its money. What excites us is that money is going to people and causes. The majority of that money is going to people and causes, and that's how I think we're going to make the change that's needed. We need money flowing back into people's pockets in these crazy economic pressured times.